Welcome to the future of luxury travel, where cryptocurrency meets paradise. Introducing Bitcoin Ben all-inclusive beach resort, nestled on the pristine shores of El Salvador. Every room is a gateway to adventure, complete with your personal 4x4 vehicle, scooter, and jet ski. Picture yourself cruising along scenic coastal roads, feeling the thrill of freedom. Glide across crystal-clear waters on your private jet ski, embracing the rush of adrenaline. Return to your luxurious suite where comfort meets cutting-edge technology. Indulge in world-class amenities from gourmet dining to rejuvenating spa treatments. Experience the vibrant nightlife with entertainment options that cater to the most discerning tastes. Invest in a resort that's not just keeping up with the times, but defining the future of travel. Join us in creating the ultimate paradise. Contact us at 562-526-0813 and become part of the future of luxury travel.
And we are live. Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite ex-truck driver in the whole wide world. It's Bitcoin Ben, here with one of my favorite people, probably my favorite person in all of Bitcoin.
I find that hard to believe, man.
How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. Really, really nice to be with you, and I always enjoy being on your show. And you're a good friend. That resort looks outstanding. I'm so happy you bought it.
Oh yeah. I'm actually gonna have two of them down there, and that's, well, number one, you had a huge announcement, your book.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing in my life. It's exciting. It's also causing some angst. I had some trouble with the Kindle version. I'm trying to get that sorted out because I don't want people to buy something and not have it work, which Amazon's frustrating me, but we'll get there. I think we've got the solution coming today, so hopefully it'll get better.
Awesome. To be honest, I haven't read it all the way through.
Yeah, that's fine. It's a long book.
yeah. There's a lot of it.
I tried to, I figured I'm only writing one of these. I wanted to make sure I covered every topic. And the other thing I would suggest to people is, you can pick and choose. The chapters are clearly labeled. There'll be some chapters that'll be more interesting to certain people. You can skip some of the history chapters. Some people started reading that and they're like, oh my God, I got really bogged down in it. So just skip chapter 11, 12 if you don't want to do the history. But there's a policy prescription. I got I've got the speech that the president of the United States should deliver under the policy, in the policy chapter. It's a good speech.
That's awesome.
Right? Yeah. So,
I love that part.
Yeah. So it's look, it's the best I could do. And I'm sure you're going to ask me, why did I do it? And the reason I did it is because I really wanted to help people. I want to help the average man, want to kind of orange pill the world. And I saw that, as we all know, inflation is the problem of our age, and it's getting worse, not better. They lie to us about it. And, it's just eating people up, Ben. You know this. I recognize I do a lot of the grocery shopping for my wife. So I go to the grocery store. I just can't believe how bad it is. It's just horrible. And, so we got to fix this. We got to solve that problem. And sound money is what does it. And the best form of sound money is Bitcoin. So, that's why I wrote the book. And my view is it'll be successful if it gets out beyond just Bitcoin land. I mean, you like it and I like it, and I know most Bitcoiners. It'll be hard to be a Bitcoiner, read this and not like it, but that's really not the target audience. The target audience is, just everyday people who don't know anything about monetary policy, don't know anything about Bitcoin. And it's the target audience is trying to save them. Try and help them understand why their lives are getting worse and what the solution is.
Yeah, and that's why I say that you're one of, if not the most influential person on me. All right, because you're like me. I'm out for the little guy.
Right.
When I launched, God, almost 9 years.
I know, you were so early.
9 years I've been doing this.
I know, it's great.
And it's what I saw was, because I saw a lot of rich people that were getting in, and I'm like, nah, we need the little guys in, who are really suffering.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
and that's what I love about you. I've actually seen you at like conferences, literally telling people, hey, like, fuck you, this is for the little guy.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I was the big guys are in it too, and that's okay. But it's,
Yeah,
it's really, yeah. My favorite plebes are the everyday plebes. You know what I mean? And because it's, I mean, they understand they're getting screwed. They're not stupid. They're tired of being lied to, and finally we got a weapon that they can fight back with, and that's what I'm trying to. Hopefully, that's what'll happen. This one guy will read it and say, "Holy shit, this guy really kind of nailed it." You got to read this, man. I mean, this is how we fight back. That's the idea. We want the plebes to, the average guy to figure out how to fight back against a really broken and corrupt system that's hurt them and many other, hurt everybody for decades, really. I mean, a long, long time. And sadly, now it's getting worse. You print 40% of the money in 2 years. I mean, guess what? Your grocery store bill is going to get enormous. And like I say, it still just blows my mind. I went out last night to just buy some basic stuff, not much. The kind of thing that 10 years ago would have been $25, and it was $75. And it's awful. It's just awful.
Yeah. I luckily do not handle the grocery shopping.
Yeah.
And I hear about it. All eggs are, $7.
Yeah, right. It's nuts. Everything.
And,
yeah. Hamburger. Yeah.
I use when I'm explaining inflation and all that.
Yeah.
I have a way of explaining it where I ask them, all right, how much do you actually make per hour?
Right.
And they'll say, whatever, like $15 an hour. And I'll say, okay, in eggs, you actually make a carton and a half.
Right.
Eggs an hour.
Right. Good way of looking at it.
All right. And what really is when I say an hour worth of your labor is apparently worth something that comes out of a chicken's ass.
Yeah. However, eggs are really good protein. They're good for.
Oh, absolutely. It just really slaps them.
Yeah.
Like one whole hour is only worth maybe 24 eggs.
Yeah, if that. Yeah.
And it shows you how you're getting fucked.
Oh yeah, yeah. The average guy is getting fucked. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, the wages have not kept up with the cost of living, and the people at the top have lied about it constantly for decades. And until Bitcoin came along, we didn't have a tool. I mean, we tried to use gold as a tool, but it got corrupted and lied. They lied about that, and they printed paper gold, and it didn't really, it helped, but it wasn't the tool that Bitcoin is. Bitcoin's a much better tool, much sharper tool. This is a spear. We're going to charge the castle, and we're going to murder the king. The king being the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, look at this. Twigs says I just paid $10 for eggs.
For a dozen eggs, yeah, Twigs. I get it. I've seen that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's awful. I mean, the hamburger. I mean, I think I bought some really high quality hamburger recently, and it was like a little over a pound. It was like $11. I mean, I was like, what the hell? Yeah,
for a pound of hamburger.
Yeah, well, it was grass fed.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's how all cows used to be.
Well, that's right. Before they started, shooting them up with all kinds of drugs and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it is a case of Bitcoin fixes this, and that's what the book is aimed at, trying to help average people to understand. And it also talks a lot about how it fixes a lot of other things too. I mean, it helps people in the third world. It helps with remittances. It's cheaper and easier to use. It's obviously 24/7. You can transact. You don't have to have the banks in the middle. Nobody's raking off the 3%. I mean, the list goes on and on. And probably most importantly, somebody Twitter this morning asked what's the most important feature to you of Bitcoin. And to me, actually, It's that it'll stop. I believe it'll help to stop wars. I mean, I think the book does a pretty decent job of laying out how, the government could never get away with taxing people to conduct the wars they conduct, because they'd have to basically grab all of your income, and nobody's going to put up with that. So really every war, and I went back and I did the history of it all, starting with the War of 1812, starting with the Revolutionary War, where every single war we've ever had has been financed by fiat money. People paid for it. It's a subtle way that they paid for it. They paid for it with inflation. I mean, before World War I, and the Fed was founded in 13 and immediately violated its charter in 1916 to help fund World War I. Of course, they gave the banks a special deal. The banks could buy bonds that yielded 3.5%, and they only had to pay 3% for the money from the Fed. So they made that 50 half a point of interest spread was just pure profit for the banks. Banks loved it. Government loved it because they got their war funded. But guess what? Between 1916 when the war started, 1920 when the war was over, the price level doubled. And the U.S. hadn't seen inflation like that since the Civil War. And then that led to the subsidiary effects of that war, which was financed with fiat money, which would have been hard to finance without fiat money. The subsidiary effects of that war were we had race riots. Charles Ponzi got his Ponzi scheme going in, 1919, which really kind of rhymes with SBF and his Ponzi scheme in 2021. The Chicago Black Sox were 1919. There were a lot of bad societal things that happened. And then, of course, what happened after that is, the progressives came in and they said, all this shit's happening because everyone's drinking too much. And so they passed the Volstead Act and they outlawed alcohol. So they got the wrong reason, right? I mean, they should have focused on the money supply, but no, they focused on alcohol. So it's just, it is amazing how much history rhymes over and over and over again. The patterns are there, and pattern recognition, I think, is a very important part of trying to understand what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I've explained several times on my show, what we are going through right now is exactly what happened in 1917 through 1922.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In 1917, we had what was called the Spanish flu.
Right.
Pandemic.
The pandemic came around the same time. Yeah, it's eerie. I was 100 years later, we had the same thing.
Because it's actually part of the progressive plan. If
Awesome.
you know the history of the progressives and who they really are, is they're actually linked with the London School of Economics and Karl Marx.
Yep.
And
that's right.
And what is happening right now with Trump is what happened in 1920 with the Reds scare. Right. Because all of the communists had actually infiltrated the government.
Yep.
And then once the election happened, they were cleaning out all of the communists in the unions, in the businesses. Let's see, Henry Ford actually got involved in it. The original Bush, I think it was Prescott Bush, he actually got involved in it. And that's why Trump has said over 200 times, what we're doing is we're reliving 1917 through 1922 and also 24.
That's right. There are a lot of parallels in there. There's some parallels with World War II as well. I mean,
absolutely.
They're going to have to do financial repression, probably yield curve control, because they're losing control of the government's finances, and so and the evidence of that is in the book. I mean, if you look at the price of Bitcoin, you look at the price of gold. I should find the page, but there's a great chart that shows how basically these things have taken off since 2020. I mean, we're Ben, as you know, and you've been preaching, we are in a sovereign debt crisis. I mean, it's on. Now I don't think everyone's and those of us who are in Bitcoin and who are listening to this are, we understand it, but we're a small percentage of the population. So, and we're lucky because we're early. and we do understand it. And as a result of that, as it plays out, the things we own, we are going to be protected. But the reason to write the book is that sadly, most of the other country doesn't know about it, or the remainder of the country doesn't know about it. And I hopefully, if we can get the book to go viral, then other people will learn about it and be saved, right? And that's, I got to tell you, one of the most satisfying. I'm sure you've had this experience, because I know you put people into Bitcoin in the 2014, 15, 16 time when it's changed their lives, right?
Yeah.
Right, big time. I was walking through the Whole Foods in Framingham, Mass. around Christmas time, and a guy came up to me, and I know you were a truck driver, and he was a delivery man truck driver. It was a company called WB Mason, which delivers office supplies around the Massachusetts area. He came up, he had a uniform on, and he came up to me and said, "Are you Larry?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Dude, I've been listening to you for 5 years. I've been stacking like a maniac. You've changed my life." And I got to tell you, Ben, that just made me feel so good. I was just like, wow, here's a guy who's driving a truck, who took the time to think it through, to listen to some people, and to, figured out Bitcoin, got in. And, I'm sure, obviously if you've been doing it for 5 years, he's probably got a pretty nice stack now. So,
yeah,
and that's what I want to have happen, but on a much grander, much larger scale. And the difficulty is that, I'm sure you've encountered this, and I've encountered it, and I want to tell a story about it, that it was easier back then. It was cheaper, although, it seemed expensive compared to what Max paid, for example, or probably what, you were paying back in the 16 area. I know I bought a lot at 4,000 and 9,000, but, at 100,000, I'm encountering a lot of, gosh, that's great. I'm happy for you. It's worked out. But, how can I pay that much when you paid 10 or 20 or, it's like, because traditional investment history says, well, if something gets too expensive, it's overvalued, you don't want to pay up for it. The juice is out of it. And what I've tried to explain, and a guy on Twitter actually gave me this analogy. It's not original to me. I just picked it up and the guy DM'd me. I thought it was a great analogy. He said, look, why don't you explain that the financial system is like the Titanic, and, Bitcoin is a seat in the lifeboat. And yeah, you paid 5,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 for your seat. And guess what? Seats now cost 100,000. But okay, Mr. New Possible Investor, do you want the seat or don't you? It's your choice, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Screw it. I don't want to pay 100,000. It's too expensive. Just keep hanging out on the Titanic. You'll be fine. I'm not sure that the economy and the financial system's the Titanic, but it's tending to go in that direction.
Oh yeah. I explain it using that exact analogy, and I actually go a little bit further, and I go, like the Titanic, the system was made to sink.
Yeah,
right.
I know that whole theory. You may be right about that. I just don't know. I was talking about that it was intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I actually know it is I love history. I've researched history
me too.
My whole life.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And when you grasp what the Fabian socialists over in England, if you know what their agenda was and what their manifesto, their communist manifesto says, and then Karl Marx explained how to infiltrate the Western world using a slow, progressive method. Because it's the only way that would work.
Well, and Keynes was a Fabian, and Keynes was a socialist, and Keynes was basically a Trojan horse, to bring the whole system in their direction and bring it down on the average man, and to be, sadly, they've been pretty successful at it. Do you know what I mean? One of the charts.
It's Shaw. It's all of them.
Yeah, one of the charts in the book that I think is the most shocking is very early in the book. There's a chart about the wealth inequality, and what it shows is that the top 1% of the population of the United States owns 92% of the wealth. That's just that's just so shocking and wrong and out of balance that I don't even know how to react to it, you know. And
God, you have a lot of charts in here. I love it.
Well, you know, some people are visual learners, and I think it's easier to make points with charts. You know what I mean? When you say, because you can see it, and it's like, wow, look at that. Yeah, so it's you know, the wealth inequality. I mean, another reason I wrote the book, Ben, is, and I'm sure, you know, we're probably of similar age, right? I remember how good a country this was in the 70s and 80s. It wasn't perfect, and the war was going on, but I remember what it was like when there was a middle class. I remember, you know, I went to school with kids whose dads were truck drivers, and, you know, my dad owned a store, and, you know, I mean, it wasn't, and the guy who ran Ford lived down the street, and, you know, he made more than my dad, but not 300 times more. You know what I mean? You know, he made 6 times more or something because he was running the biggest auto company at the time. So, you know, it's just, it's what's happened is the system has just gotten so tilted to favor, you know, the people who know how to play the game, what I call kind of the so-called elites. They're not elite at all. They're you know, they're pigs, but, you know, it's gotten so out of balance. And it's just left the rest of us, you know, scrambling for crumbs, and it's just not right. I mean, you know, I think, I'm sure you agree with this. I mean, one of the things that people say, why do you like Bitcoin so much? I really love Bitcoin because it's fair. You know, I mean, I think America was built on fairness, you know, the notion that every human should have an equal right to succeed. And that's kind of the fundamental premise of the American dream, is fairness. And, you know, this monetary system is not fair. It's not a fair system at all. And it's, you know, some people don't understand that, but, you know, hopefully the book will help make them aware of that and recognize that if we want to get back to, you know, I mean, I miss the America that I grew up in. It was different. It was better. It didn't have the technology that we have now. I like this technology. The technology is really cool. You know, we couldn't talk, you know, multi-city around the world, real time, you know, et cetera. This is all great. And this didn't exist in the 70s. You know, you had to go to the library to look up information. You couldn't Google it or chat GPT it. But, but in terms of a fair and, you know, a society where everybody did okay, it was better back then, in my opinion. So, and I miss that. I really miss that.
Yeah, it's, I'm right there with you. I grew up in an America where, number one, there were only 2 genders. This whole like multi-gender shit's just retarded.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is, and this is why I'm on YouTube channel number 5, because they keep on kicking me off, is we did, for the longest time until recently, we didn't have any real men who said, now stop this bullshit.
Yeah.
There ain't 100 genders.
No, it's yeah, yeah, a lot of stuff's gone in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and please do not take offense to this. You remind me of my grandfather, all right? Not age-wise, you know, I mean how you are. You're a very blunt, very look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you because you need to live in reality. And how you talk is how he actually talked to me when I was 11 years old, helping him hanging, you know, drywall and shit.
Right. Yeah. No, it's, look, I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, everybody kind of comes from where they come from. I mean, I grew up with a very Midwestern sensibility, you know, and my father was like, I mean, I remember as clear as day, you know, I wanted something when I was a kid, and he's like, great, you're going to work for it, you know, and why don't you go out and mow the lawn? You know, I'll pay $1. And
Yep.
And it just started, one thing led to another. And that, you know, I think that kind of an ethic, we all had it, and a lot more people had it in the 60s and 70s, and it's faded. There's a lot more sense of entitlement, I think, sadly, and at least a lot of trouble, you know.
Yeah, and like my grandfather used to say, The only cure for laziness is hunger.
Yeah,
Let
right.
the motherfuckers get hungry. They'll work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. I mean, it's yeah, it was a different country. I mean, it's you know, I think about how everybody suffered in the 30s. I mean, it was a pretty amazing time. I've read a lot of the history of the 30s, and I mean, it's like you hear about it and you realize that it's like, thank God people knew how to hunt, because I mean, there were people who basically wouldn't have been able to put food on the table if they couldn't hunt squirrels and rabbits. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and I don't think we're going back to anything like that. But my point is that it was a tough, resilient nation back then, and a lot of that's changed, sadly.
Yeah, because we no longer value. In fact, we attack strong, guys and men.
Some people do. Not everybody does, but you're right. Some people do. I mean, it's yeah, it's a society that has certainly changed, and not all for the better, unfortunately.
Yeah,
the core, though, if you really look at the core of America, I mean, I still think there's a very strong, you can't erase a couple hundred years of history. I mean, in the book, I talk a lot about how, I kind of think peak America was right after we won World War II. I mean, and not to say we hadn't done bad things all along, because there had been bad things for sure. And, I have that anecdote in the book. I told a Swiss friend, I said, we used to be a moral nation. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh yeah, the one that committed genocide on the Indians and then, imported black slaves." I said, "Well, yeah, I guess you have a point."
Well,
but the point is that we've drifted from what we were. I mean, the things that helped us to win World War II, the characteristics of that generation, have faded over time, and that's unfortunate. And I'm sure you understand this. I mean, the really kickoff event in that whole fading, in my opinion, was the murder of Kennedy by the CIA. At that point in time, we really started going badly down the wrong path.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And this is why I know the problem is progressivism, because what happened is we've actually been lied to about our history.
Yeah, there's certainly been a lot of that, for sure.
And that there's a reason why everyone talks about slavery, but no one talks about indentured servants. The majority were not slaves, they were indentured servants. And Benjamin Franklin was an indentured servant to his brother and ran away. So technically, Benjamin Franklin was
briefly was a slave, but yeah, but you have to admit, the black people, I mean, they didn't have that choice. I mean, they weren't indentured. They became sharecroppers after the war was over, but many of them literally did not have any choice. And I mean, they were brought. Shackles.
That was after a lawsuit in 1840 something, where a black slave owner sued a black slave because he actually claimed that her child, because she went into labor and the contract she was under said anything produced through her labor was his. And he argued that the child, because she produced it through labor, was his. And actually the court agreed with him. So that's what really locked in the slave part.
What was interesting was that, there were slaves in Britain, and they outlawed it in the early 1800s, and they basically did, and they paid compensation. They just said, look, this isn't ethical. And they paid compensation to the slaveholders, the slave owners, and said, we're not going to let this happen, but this is your property, and so we'll pay you for it, which would have been a much better solution than the Civil War, which is an incredibly bloody and nasty event. But
yeah, hang on one second. Word from our sponsor.
Okay.
Are you buying and selling cryptos on the same laptop that you're using to browse the internet, read your email, and visit social media sites? If so, you're exposing your cryptos to theft. Whenever you're online, you're at risk of getting hacked and having your identity stolen. How would you feel if someone stole all of your cryptos? What would that do to your finances? Guard your cryptos with a safe and secure laptop from CALIX Solutions. Each laptop is set up just for you and your cryptos, and then we walk you through exactly how it works. Don't risk the security of your cryptos. Order a crypto laptop from CALIX Solutions now to secure your crypto future. Learn more at calixsolutions.io.
And we're back. All right, once is it all right if I call you Leonard or?
No, Larry. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I go by Larry. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I didn't want to assume it.
Yep.
All right, Larry, what do you think about what's going on with Trump and Elon and all that? If you're anything like me, you couldn't slap the fucking smile off my face right now.
Yeah, there's certainly some of that. I mean, look, I think that in general, the government needs to be reformed in a lot of ways. I think he's made some very good choices to help him reform it. Scott Bessent, in my opinion, is a smart guy, and the monetary problem is a big one. I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, it's almost brain surgery to get this right, and at least he's a smart guy who understands what the issues are. You know, all the other stuff he's digging into, I think it's great. You know, I mean, I'd say this to you, Ben. I mean, I with respect to politicians, I'm a skeptic of all of them, even including Trump. I mean, I'm sure you would kind of agree with me that, you know, doing Trump coin and Melania coin was not in the spirit of kind of what Bitcoin's all about. Do you know what I mean? Doing his own meme coins. You know what I mean?
I think that's him dropping a hint for the future.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. And look, some people say, hey, it's just like, you know, a basketball player selling his shoes or his shirts or whatever. And I understand all of that, you know, and I mean, people say, well, he sells steak knives. He sells, I mean, if he wants to sell the Trump brand, I'm fine with that. You know, put your name on something and sell it. I'm good with that. Where I get less good with it is I'm sure you would agree, you know, is that shit coining, which is, you know, kind of selling something as a pump and dump and then selling into it, that's taking advantage of the little man. That's taking advantage of the naive investor. And I don't know for sure that he did that, but what we read on Twitter and other places is that they issued these coins and then they sold into it. You know what I mean? The family took money out of them after they'd promoted them. And if that's the case, I think that's dishonorable. I'm not. You know,
I would agree with that if that was their intention, but because I know some of the internal team working with Trump on all of this, what I believe their goal is to introduce the technology to the little guy, because they made such a big deal out of it. All of the average, truck drivers who are MAGA and, they don't know nothing about blockchain or cryptos or nothing.
No, I get it. And look, that's the alternative side of the case. And I understand that. And so,
yeah,
we can agree or to disagree, or we can, both view it. It's unclear to me. I mean, I think you would agree though, that, in general, shit coining is not a good thing. I mean, we both know that, in the 10 years that we've been in Bitcoin, each of us, that, there's just been a lot of bullshit that's come along. And, like Sam, I know, for example, with me, there were many, many times when I was trying to, orange pill somebody, saying, look, you got to get this stuff. Here's why. And they would point to Sam Bankman-Fried and they would say, what are you talking about? It's all fraud. It's all criminal fraud. And, they were, in his case, they were right. And I said,
yeah.
I said, those are tokens, not based on proof of work. I mean, you're looking at an apple and an orange, and you're saying because the apple is rotten, the orange is rotten. That's not the case. They're just two different things. But it was annoying because, you and I had to make that argument. I've had to make that argument over and over and over again. And, guys like Bankman-Fried, made it harder for Bitcoin to shine through as the clear solution, which it will anyway you look at it. It's just that it's taken longer. And I know, I know a lot of people, not a lot, but several handful of people that, lost a lot of money in these things. I mean, they fell for this stuff. And, they had, $50,000, $100,000 of some of these shit coins, FTX, whatever it might have been. Not Solana. What was the one that, the one that the guy tattooed on his arm? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, hell, I don't remember. There's been some.
Right. And I've forgotten it intentionally because I just don't even want to remember.
Yeah.
My point is there was a lot of bad behavior around crypto, so to speak. And that annoys me. And I think it hurt our case,
Yeah.
So that is what it is.
Yeah.
Terra Luna was the coin.
Oh, yes. Did you hear they're trying to bring that shit back?
No, I didn't hear that.
Oh, yeah. They're going to go for a second round. Why? Hey, we fucked people once. Why don't we fuck some more people?
Well, and again, to be completely fair on all this stuff, why does Dogecoin have a 60 billion plus market cap? It
Elon Musk.
Exactly. No, I get it. I get it that it's his brand, but I'm just like, it's not Bitcoin. It's just, you and I both know that Bitcoin is a singular technological development that's very, very unique, and that's going to change the world. And to conflate it with all these other coins that are something else, and maybe look to be fair, as Saylor says, maybe out of some of these other coins, a useful second coin will emerge as maybe as a transaction coin. I think layer 2 on Bitcoin is still somewhat up for, it's a little bit of a jump ball. I think we all believe and hope that Lightning is going to be the solution. But I think there's some possibility. It's been a little slower in developing than I would like to have seen. And I think that therefore there's a chance that that Lightning does not work out, and that there's the layer 2 is some other coin. And the layer 1 will always be the base Bitcoin, which can't be diluted and can't be deflected. But if Lightning doesn't do what we hope it can do, then something else will probably emerge that'll serve that same role of being the low cost payment coin, obviously without as much security and without as much non-dilutiveness, but you'll just keep your funds in Bitcoin and then use that to pay your bills. Kind of the way we all do right now. We all, I keep most of my spare funds in Bitcoin, but I don't really ever sell Bitcoin because I've got income to pay my bills. But if I did need to sell, if I did need to pay my bills and didn't have another source of income, I would sell some Bitcoin and convert it into whatever it was that I was going to use as a transaction medium, right?
Yeah. The other coin I like is actually Litecoin because it's structured.
I've heard that. I think Litecoin contends for that role. I think Solana contends for that role. There's several of them that all have the potential, and I'm open-minded to that. And if if the issuance policy, if they're not doing pump and dumps with a crazy issuance policy, if they're not like Ethereum where they're changing the rules 7 times, then as Saylor says, if they're ethical, then there will be other crypto use cases that will have benefits in the world, and I'm open-minded to that. But I think that the whole shitcoin episode was so gross, and the pump and dumps were so bad that. Oh,
I remember 2017 where everyone launched a coin on Ethereum.
Exactly. Yeah. There was how many of them? We lost count with how many of them have come and gone, and some have been very, very big, right? Bankman-Fried was $11 billion when that thing blew up. That was horrible.
Yeah, and one of these days I'll have you on one of our history shows, and I'll explain my theory of how I think FTX was the next system that the progressives were moving into.
Oh, I certainly think it's a possibility. And I also think that I mean, there were several of us, including some, I'm not going to name names, but some very high profile Bitcoiners who knew that he was a fraud, who actually went to the SEC and said, this guy's a fraud. You did it? Yeah. And said, this guy, and they ignored it. And, you know, gee, I wonder why. I mean, he was giving enormous political donations, right? And so, you know, that I think had an impact.
Yeah, because everyone who knew how it was structured, we were like, this guy's absolutely full of shit.
Yeah,
he's actually getting loans.
Did you ever see, and I posted on Twitter a couple of times, way back. Did you ever see the box video where he talked about the box? How you would put something into a box and then you would, you know, you would sell one of the units for a crazy price, and that meant the other 9 units were worth the same crazy price. I mean, it was basically describing a Ponzi scheme, and it was out there. It was on YouTube. It was public, and he was kind of laughing about it. And you know, this was not hard to figure out if you're paying attention.
Yeah, my absolutely favorite video of all time was when Eric Voorhees verbally kicked his ass in a debate.
Yeah, I didn't see that one, but I would have liked to have seen that.
Oh, Google that.
Okay, I will.
You won't need a little blue pill. Your dick will get hard just hearing Eric Voorhees just bitch slap him.
Voorhees SBF debate, I'll find it. Yeah, there was a good clip. Caitlin Long, who runs Custodia, shared.
She's awesome.
She is awesome. Yeah, she shared a stage with him, and there was a very good clip of her interacting with him and kind of doing the same thing. It was probably tamer than Voorhees, but you could see it. You knew who was, you watched that and you knew who was telling the truth and who wasn't, right?
Well, yeah. Plus, I mean, you could tell this guy was not in charge.
Yeah.
He's a pansy. I live in my mom's basement and fucking live on Hot Pockets and fucking Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
That guy didn't lead a company.
Yeah. Well, it's quite an amazing thing. Those were wild days, and there've been a lot of wild days in this whole space. I mean, the block size wars. I remember 2017. I started buying in 2013 or 14, and just kind of kept ramping up my buys over time. And my great concern throughout that whole time period was I just didn't know if it was technically sound. I was afraid that there might be a gotcha. Computers blow up, things go blue screen. I didn't really understand the proof of work algorithm, or in the early days, or the halving, or the difficulty adjustment, all the brilliant parts of the algorithm. I didn't get it. And I didn't see how they really made this different than the 5 other kinds of paper, of electronic currencies we tried before that, the ones that failed, like DigiCash and eCash. And Sabo had one, and B-Money, and so on and so forth. So, I didn't really believe in it. And then 2017, it started to take off, and I just chased it right up to 16, 17,000. I was still buying. I figured it was going to 100, right?
Oh yeah.
I was wrong about that.
Well, it did.
Yeah, well, eventually it did, but it took a little while. Then turned around, went to 9, then it went to 4. So, it's but throughout this all, you kind of continue to learn, and your conviction grows, your understanding grows, and I mean, now we've really, I think the last piece of the puzzle for me and a lot of my crowd that I was talking to was, the kind of more traditional investors was, gosh, yeah, that's great, Larry. It's a nice libertarian dream, sound money, blah, blah, blah. But the government's going to outlaw this. They're going to ban it. They're going to make it tax at 90%, et cetera, et cetera. When the ETF passed, Ben, that was when I knew we'd won. In January, because I didn't actually think they'd get it through. I thought they'd figure out some way to block the ETF. And what it tells you is that BlackRock and all those other guys had enough money and influence to convince them to do it. But then when the ETF went through, in my view, that's when the whole game really, really changed, and a lot of the risk came out of it. Because look, that could always change. In the future, there's nothing to say that a poorly run government couldn't come around and come back the other direction at some point in the future. But for now, it's viewed as a commodity and it's legal to trade it. And there's an ETF that allows you to buy it in your brokerage firm. And the biggest asset manager in the world, the guy who I'm not particularly fond of because I think he's a fiat lord, Larry Fink, flipped from hating it to realizing it's digital gold. And he was smart enough to realize that, look, I'm going to have to deal with this thing one way or another. I might as well be a part of it and try and make some money because it's going to win. Or he could do what the Vanguard guy did and said, no, this is stupid. I don't believe in it. I'm not going to do it. And then he got fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you're out.
Yeah, you're out. So, and I think that's going to happen across the board. I mean, there are a lot of banks that have poo-pooed it, but now that they can, SAB 121 has changed. Now they can potentially custody it and lend against it. Well, guess what? They're probably going to start doing that because they realize that there's a business there. So, it just seems to me to be picking up momentum. And I think the sailors said, we're kind of in that 10-year golden age where, kind of we're reaching the tipping point. I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed now in America to find somebody who doesn't know what Bitcoin is. I mean, in 2017, if I went to people and said, hey, I'm looking at this Bitcoin, they said, what? Like nobody knew what it was back then, as you know. Now everybody at least knows what it is. Now, that doesn't mean they bought it. That doesn't mean they understand it. That doesn't mean they believe in it, but at least they're aware of it. And so that's step one. And, maybe 10% of us really get it and are buying it. And, therefore the book, right? I mean, I want to help the other 90%. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's the book. I mean, just come on, folks. This is, we're suffering from inflation. Here's the cure. And,
yes.
By the way, it has a lot of nice subsidiary benefits because when we get back on a sound money standard, a lot of these other issues, I think, will become less relevant. So.
Yep. I've actually decided we are going to sell these at our club. Exactly what we paid is what all of our.
Ben, I'll give them to you. I'll give them to you. You tell me.
No.
I'll send them to you.
No. I'm a capitalist.
I'll get you at author's. I'll get you at author's cost at least. I'll get you a bulk order at author's cost. Yeah.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, it's easy to do. And once I get outside of Amazon, Amazon charges a lot to print these books. I found a independent businessman printer in Chicago, in Ohio, and I can, so the book sells for the paperback. So this math is amazing. Paperback sells for $18.50, right? That's like $6 to print it. Amazon rakes like 70% off it. By the time I'm all done, I get a couple bucks a book, which is fine. I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to change the world. But my point is that, I found a guy in Ohio who's an independent printer. I mean, if I'm willing to buy in 1,000 unit lots, which I think it probably sometime makes sense, I can get the printing cost down to like $3 a book.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, so I can send you 1,000 books for $3,000. So
I'll take them.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's what we're going to do. I mean, that's exactly.
And now I'll give them away.
Well, that's my point. I mean, I will too. Yeah, that's my point.
This is why I launched my clubs. We're going on year number 3 on our first club. We've now opened up 6 clubs or 5 clubs. We have Sarasota. We have up here in Massachusetts. We have one in Nashville. We have one in St. Louis, one in Texas, and we're launching another one in Vegas here in a couple months.
Fantastic. I'm a huge supporter of everything you're doing. Ben, I just want to give you a heads up. We're coming up on 11, and I did make another commitment at 11. I got an hour total, but we got another 10 minutes. If there's anywhere else you want to go or things you want me to talk about, I'm happy to do it.
All I want is let the people know where they can get your book.
That's great. So if you go to my site on Twitter, my pinned tweet has a link to the Amazon page where you can buy it. It's in 3 formats, and I should talk about this. I mentioned at the beginning, but I want to mention it again. We're having trouble with Kindle. Wouldn't recommend a purchase on Kindle right now unless you have an iPad with a Kindle reader. Apparently on Fire and on Goodreads and some of the other on Paperwhite and so forth. They're having trouble downloading it. It's something to do with my file formatting. I've got my team working on it. They're going to fix it. So hold off on a Kindle purchase right now, unless you're going to read it on iPad with a Kindle reader. It works fine on that. The other, and that's $9.99. The other two formats are hardcover and paperback, $26.50 and $18.50. And then there's actually a link there to a group in Europe, very good friend of mine, Newt Venholm, and they are selling it mostly for European distribution, but you can buy it with sats on their site. So, and there's a link to that. So if you want to purchase it in sats, I mean, most people don't want to part with sats, but some people like to support the sat network. They've got a lightning link and you can buy it from them as well. So, and then a lot of people have asked about the Audible, and that's in process. I've got a lot of people said, hey, you got to read it. I'd love
Yes, you have to read it.
No, I know, Ben, I'm going to disappoint you, man. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I know. I'm running a business. I've got two funds I manage. In fact, I want to talk about one of those Bitcoin Opportunity Fund. They're raising money right now. They had a fabulous year last year. They were up 64%. They're one of the top performing hedge funds in the country. One of the biggest holdings of MicroStrategy. They do all kinds of really interesting things that I think make their returns comparable, or if not better than Bitcoin, depends on the year. And my partner, David Foley and James Lavish, partners, run that. And, your folks should take a look at that if they're a qualified investor. It's a 200K minimum, but setting that aside for a minute, I contribute on that fund. I got another fund I run. I'm still dragging around a legacy gold and silver mining stock fund, which I won't drag around forever, but I need one more run in it so I get all my compressors out with a nice profit. And as a result, that takes up a lot of my time. So what I've done is I've contracted with Walker America, who a lot of Bitcoin Twitter will know who he is. He's got a great voice. He is putting down the files right now as we speak. And I don't know exactly the timing, but there will be an Audible version. So, people with long haul trucking routes and driving and people want to listen to it in the cars. I've had some people say, my eyes are bad. I can't read books. I only listen to them. It's coming. It's coming. It's just not done yet. So give us a few weeks. We'll have the Audible out. So we're making progress on those things. But I have to say, actually, absent the Kindle thing, which has been a nightmare, I'm really pleased with the way the printed books look. They're decent. They came out pretty well, I thought. I have caught two typos. If you get an early edition, hang on to them. There's a typo on the back page. I'll know you had an early edition because of these typos. I think there's a typo on page 46 and there's a typo on the back cover. I've submitted the new files. Probably the next time they turn the printer on, those typos will be gone. But if you got one of the early copies, I'll know because I can look at the back cover and tell you. So
yep. And
the other thing I would add, Ben, just heads up. I know people want signed copies. Eventually, I'll have the ability to order through a website signed copies. I'll inscribe them any way you want, but that's not set up yet. I'm going to go to shows. I'll tell you which ones. Happy to sit at the show and sign everybody's copy. So I'm going to be at BitBlock Boom in Dallas. I think.
Oh, I'm also going there.
You're going there? Okay, great. Well, we'll see you there. And then obviously I'll be in Las Vegas at the bigger show. And then I've committed to do Bitcoin Prague in June over in Europe. So and happy to love meeting plebes, happy to sit with people, talk, answer questions, sign books, all that stuff. So that's on the schedule for now. There may be some other ones, but I don't know. I mean, I've gotten a lot of invites, but you just can't go everywhere. I mean, if we've all come to see, I mean, you could be doing some Bitcoin thing every week of the year. And I got a business I got to run too. So.
Yep. I would like to offer up any of our clubs. We could actually do just you and have people. Yes.
Happy to do it as we go out a little bit, Ben. I mean, right now is absolutely insane, but let's put that as a possible for the future.
Absolutely.
I'm not going anywhere, and I'd love to help you out. And I like I say, I always enjoy meeting people in this space. I mean, generally speaking, if you're a Bitcoiner, I like you because we all kind of tend to
unless you're Sam.
Well, unless you're what?
Unless you're Sam Bankman.
Well, yeah, and I don't think he was a real Bitcoiner. He was actually he was a fake Bitcoiner because he actually had Bitcoin on the balance sheet, didn't own it. He sold Bitcoin that he didn't have. So he was a fake Bitcoiner. Yeah, he was a fucking criminal. Yeah,
All right, Butter, I got you head off, and thank you so much for your
well,
time.
thank you. I enjoy being on your platform. I hope we're able to sell some books. I hope the book, I mean, I would say to everybody, if you can, if you like it, pass it on. Let's try and, I mean, the way to make the world better is to have Bitcoin be widely adopted. The way to get Bitcoin widely adopted is to get more people to be aware of Bitcoin. And I wrote this book to try and accomplish that task. And hopefully, I mean, that's how I'm going to measure success,
Yes, and I highly recommend everyone, you get one for yourself, one for a friend, and give it away as a gift. And just say, just read this.
I hope so. Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, there've been some other great books written. I mean, Safe's book is a brilliant book. The best book ever written on Bitcoin. Lynn and Jeff wrote great books too. I think this is a little different. Somebody made a comment yesterday. We don't need to keep rewriting Safe's book, and this has got some of Safe's stuff in it. This is different. It's written more as a story, and it's written more it's less of a textbook and more kind of easy to understand. Because I've really tried to write it for the common man. I want anybody to be who doesn't know anything. I mean, I've got a footnote that explains what the Federal Reserve is, right?
Yeah.
I want anybody who, any stage of, any place in the world, any stage of life, any station, to be able to pick it up, read it, and go, oh my God, I get it. I get why the system's not working out, and I get what I got to do. That's the goal.
All right, Butter. Well, you have a great day.
Yeah, likewise. I'm sorry to have to jump, but I did
that's all right, Brother.
All right, we'll see you. Take care, guys.
Yep. Have a great day, Lawrence.
Thanks.
All right, Larry.
Yeah, that's the next one.
Bye-bye. All right, guys and gals, we are going to end it here. I will be back tomorrow morning. All right, no, I'll see you on Monday. Love you guys.
Are you ready to unlock the potential of cryptocurrency? Welcome to Bitcoin Ben's Crypto Club, the premier destination for crypto enthusiasts and investors worldwide. Our mission? To demystify cryptocurrency and create a supportive community where you can learn, network, and grow. Imagine being part of a thriving crypto ecosystem in various cities around the world. In our first year, we're establishing physical hubs in key cities and launching an informative website. You'll have access to exclusive events, expert-led sessions, and a wealth of resources at your fingertips. Year 2 brings expanded educational programs and a mentorship system to pair crypto newbies with seasoned investors. We're not just a club, we're a movement. Our annual crypto conference will put us on the map as a global crypto capital. By year 3, we'll have our own app, a community investment fund, and a thriving ecosystem of crypto opportunities. Imagine being part of a group that's shaping the future of finance. Join us for workshops, seminars, and networking events designed to boost your crypto knowledge and investment potential. From beginners to experts, there's a place for everyone in our vibrant community. Together, we'll navigate the exciting world of digital currencies and blockchain technology. Ready to take control of your financial future and be part of something revolutionary? Experience our exclusive resort in El Salvador, a paradise for crypto enthusiasts. Call or text 941-391-3882 to join our Owners Weekly Call and start your journey with Bitcoin Ben's Crypto Club today.